Well, we're all here, obviously. I don't think I need to do roll call. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions about the minutes? All right, so minutes approved. And now we will go to Assistant Chief Cooey for the crime analysis report.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Bangs. I think that Kathy's going to do a share screen, but while she's getting ready for that, had hoped to have Detective Jay West here. He's off this afternoon. Some of you may not know that he has a couple of special duties in addition to being a detective in criminal investigations. One of them is our intel analyst, and another one is our tech guy, as far as trying to exploit information out of cell phones and computers and things like that. So Detective West was responsible for creating this bulletin and intel analysis. I'm really a little bit surprised, but pleased to report that the numbers are all almost all looking very good for us in the direction that we want them to go. I could share screen, Kathy, if you can't get it.
Yeah, for some reason, this computer is not letting me share, Mark. I'm so sorry.
Let's see here.
Not sure why.
Can you
There you
guys see
go.
that?
Yep.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. And so, well, we'll start with auto thefts. It's at the top of the page. It's, you know, it's a big deal in our city. We've obviously got Pacific Highway South running through, so main thoroughfare. But you can see that the trend line is down. He has the most recent on the left. And so a very good direction for the trend line to go. And we just have it divided by district, but I want to give you the high level. We also track every single stolen. We've got, you know, the details of the theft. There's more information than what you see here, but you can see the make, model, year of the vehicle. For whatever reason, Ford pickups have become popular to steal. Used to be Honda Accords and Camrys, especially Honda Accord, for whatever reason, for a long time has been a popular vehicle to steal. Again, comparison year over year, month by month. If you can see that, the blue line, 2021, again, a little bit less than what we were seeing last year. Very few commercial burglaries, so really small numbers. You can see that a little bit of a drop from March of 2020, but kind of holding constant. Residential burglaries is one area that's gone up. Again, very small numbers. I think people are going back to work. They're away from their house. That was our assessment for in April. And you see by district, I don't have the district map for you, but we've got the city divided into grids. That's the year over year for commercial burglaries. Again, you can see that all in all, if you drew the trend line, it's a little, looks to me like it would be less than the past calendar year. So residential burglaries, same thing. It's up for April, but well, maybe if you did the math there, it's up a little bit for the first 4 months. Mail theft. This one's an interesting one as well, because one mail thief can kind of go berserk and create a lot of victims and a lot of problems. It's amazing what one person that's up to no good can do. And so, but in looking at this, you know, the numbers kind of bounce around, but we're essentially on par for April, big drop in March, and we're a little bit above Again, for a year, if it took the 4 months, I'd see that we're down overall. And robberies are a very small number. Sometimes this gets reported incorrectly. A robbery would be force, fear, intimidation, violence, take somebody's stuff. The Safeway stores, oftentimes it's a shoplift. Loss prevention will go out and try to confront the person that's stealing. And then the person that's stealing will pull out a pocket knife or take a swing or do something else. And really what you have there is you have a theft and an assault. It's not a robbery. A robbery would be me going to the store, pulling a gun or a knife or passing a note and saying, I've got a bomb. That would be a robbery. So sometimes those get dispatched incorrectly and they get interpreted incorrectly because, especially with the example I just gave, we get a lot of those where it's a shoplifting, person's confronted, and then they become aggressive or potentially violent. So here's a good summary for everyone to look at, just kind of an overview of, that's a 2-week period breakdown, but for all of these crime stats that are tracked, the red is catching our attention, meaning it's going the wrong direction. And you can see for most of those categories, it's we're either doing better or let me push this down here. Year to date, it's kind of a mixed bag, but again, some of these are very small numbers. So the other part that's not in this briefing that Detective West put together is we do compare ourselves to our neighboring jurisdictions, and we are in a much better position than our neighbors in Federal Way, Kent, SeaTac. I think the chief has shared that in the past, that we're fortunate where we're at. I think some of you were on a meeting recently where that kind of information was shared. So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Chair. So Mark, so I've seen a lot of communication about catalytic converters being stolen. Is there a category you guys are putting those in here?
Yes, sir. In fact, we have some at the back door to the station there outside in that bullpen area. It is still an issue. It's considered a theft. Is it
Okay.
property theft?
Property, not vehicle, obviously.
Yeah, okay. It's not categorized right there. You know, it's the mineral or the you know, the product that is inside that they're stealing and then turning around and trying to make money on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll see if we can put that in our next briefing. It's something that
it seems to be the item, of course, obviously for what the reasons you said, we all know.
Right.
But that seems to be the one I see most commonly called out.
Yeah, and it's a huge hassle to the person that's got to go then take their car to a mechanic and
expensive too.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go on to the next item, which is street racing ordinance update. That'd be Chief.
Yes, and I think Matt Hutchins from our city attorney's office may jump in and help out with this. We have been working with the city attorney's office to forward recommendations or to take a look at other ordinances in the region regarding street racing to help address that issue. And we got to the point where we decided that we would like to bring this topic to our public safety emergency management meeting to gauge or get some direction from the council or from this committee on if you want us to move forward with that, looking at an ordinance or not. We're just trying to engage and include this committee on providing us some direction. I think I know where you want us to go, but I want to check in and have you on board.
Tim?
Yeah, I can add to that. So obviously street racing and kind of these stunt events has become a hot topic. And Des Moines has been the host, the unwilling host, right, a few times. And so, you know, we've looked at, based on conversations that I had with the chief and Mark, Matt Hutchins has done quite a bit of research into, you know, what kind of codes are out there to address attendance at a race event or an unauthorized stunt event, so that so our police officers can have an enforcement mechanism, not just for the people that are actually racing, but the people that are out there blocking traffic, attending these events, and kind of creating this, you know, they can turn into big problems, if you've seen on the news in other cities. So we found that there's a handful of cities that have, you know, the kind of these attending a race event ordinance. And we've put together sort of a basic draft. So if the committee gives us the green light, we can basically finalize that and bring it forward to the council fairly soon, kind of ahead of the summertime, what we would expect to be a fairly, you know.
Do you have a draft, Tim, or you're just talking about it?
I mean, we have a basic draft, but I mean, we could finalize that draft and move it forward. Just to let the committee know, there's generally 3 elements that you would have that would allow for attendance at one of these events to be a criminal offense. So therefore, our officers could arrest somebody that's attending an unlawful stunt or racing event on a public street. And so those are being present. So you got to be present. You have to have knowledge that this event is occurring. So, you know, clearly if someone was just driving through and they got caught up, we wouldn't want to arrest them. And then you have to have the intent to be there to observe, support, or encourage the event.
That's interesting.
Looks like there's a question.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Anthony. You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. I was waiting for you. Sorry. So 2 questions. What is the penalty that you're trying to apply to that? And also, how would you prove intent that the person was intended to be there if they just lie and say, you know, I didn't know this was happening? How do you plan to prove that? And would this be a misdemeanor, a gross misdemeanor, a penalty, or what would the penalty be?
So it would either be a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor. It wouldn't be a felony because it would be city code. So that would be essentially a question for the council. We could take a look at what the other codes are out there and let the council know that. As far as intent, you know, we compiled kind of a list of items that are generally used. So, I mean, just a few. One would be the person admits that they were there for the event, that they're known to be associated with racing, or people that are associated with unlawful racing, that they're either operating or a passenger in a vehicle that shares the attributes of other vehicles. So, you know, a lot of these cars look the same, or they might have decals on them that are associated with street racing. Conduct of the driver or the passenger. The person has no reasonable alternative purpose for being in the area. I mean, so there's a kind of an exhaustive list, and that's always going to be a problem. You know, the judge is always going to want to know, just like we have with our loitering, drug loitering, and prostitution loitering. There's kind of a list that you would, if you can prove enough of these, you know, you basically get over that hurdle.
Can I, Councilmember or Member Banks, can I add a little bit to that potentially?
Sure, and then Deputy Mayor Mahoney had a question. Go ahead, Chief.
I just want to add on a little bit to what Tim was saying. When I was in Kent, we implemented this ordinance there. So I'm pretty familiar with putting these together and really, Councilmember Martinelli asked a good question. We will identify areas in our community where we have problems with racing. And I believe most of you have seen the video up in our warehouse district where they're doing the drifting. And there is no other reason at 2 o'clock in the morning to be in a warehouse in the city of Des Moines with 250 cars doing drifting. So it's fairly easy to prove that they had knowledge that they were not there for a legal activity. And my experience has been with these is it's been very effective when the police can stay on top of it. So if you have a large event like that, now with no tools, what happens is we get out of the way and just let them go on, and then they have control. In Tacoma and some other areas recently, they've shut down roads so they can do their racing. And after what happened in Tacoma with the officer getting surrounded and driving through, now the officers just walk away. They either don't respond or they go the other direction. So that is not acceptable in our community. That is not going to happen as long as I'm the police chief here. So we want to have some tools to address that. And I think this would be a good tool. What we would do is block those exits, identify everybody who's at that, using the example of the warehouse district with the drifting. Everybody who happens to be there watching is in violation of the code if that's what the council chooses to do. They get a summons to court. So the last one I was involved in, I think we wrote tickets basically, or a summons to court to about 250 people. They paid like a $250, or they were offered to pay a $250 fine plus court fees. So it came to about $500 fine, and they worked that out through the court. So we didn't overwhelm the jail. The court could manage however many they needed to do at a time until they processed them through. But really, we're not looking to get innocent people caught up in this. And hopefully, as we get through this time of COVID, if Councilmember Martinelli, if you have interest in coming out with some officers and seeing what we are seeing, it may give you a better idea of what we're up against in these situations. And really, when I say we, is what the police are up against, but what I would say is what the community is up against, with the loud mufflers, with the danger of engaging in this conduct. So I'm a strong supporter that we provide some tools to ensure that we can keep order in our community.
Thank you, Chief. Deputy Mayor?
So really quick, just point of clarification. Tim, I heard you say about it occurring on public streets, and then we were citing an example of the business park, which is private property. How does it work? Does it work on both, or is it just in the language, or did I miss something?
I probably misspoke on that. It would be unlawful, unpermitted racing events.
Within the limits of Des Moines?
Yeah, we could, yeah.
Okay, that was just the only thing there. And then Chief, I know on the noise issue, this ordinance isn't going to cover that. We have some on that. Can you speak to that piece? Because obviously that's what we hear about, because I think people think they're doing 90 when they're doing 27, but it's the mufflers that have been altered versus the ones that come stock.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this up. It was a hot topic of conversation at our police advisory group meeting on Tuesday. But if you alter or modify the exhaust in your vehicle in any way, that is actually a violation of the revised Code of Washington. For us to be able to prove that is pretty difficult. And that becomes the challenge. So you can enforce that infraction. So it's a pretty low level violation, the lowest really that's out there. But we would either need a decibel meter that we would need to purchase and then keep certified, so that's what puts us in the challenge. It's a cost benefit. I know I don't like the loud mufflers either, but when you look at it, some of those are being manufactured that way from the factory as they purchase the car. So proving that they modified the exhaust and then proving that it reaches a decibel level higher than is permitted is quite a bit for a civil infraction. And we have looked and others have looked, and we are not aware of any other tool in the United States used by law enforcement to effectively address that issue.
That was going to be my next question to Matt and Tim, but it looks like you answered it for him. So that's all the questions I had, Chair.
Thank you. So given that, I would ask the committee if they are in favor of moving this forward to a council meeting. Is that a yes, Councilmember Martinelli, or a question?
A question
Okay,
or a comment, actually.
all right.
So I would say that I am in favor of establishing a civil infraction, like a ticket that can be given to these individuals. Considering that most of them are so young, I would have to say that I am adamantly opposed to establishing an actual misdemeanor crime that would be given just for individuals in attendance. I am fully for harsh penalties for those in participation, but I really worry about us giving a misdemeanor penalty to an 18-year-old who just one time came out to a street race. I just worry about that and the long-term consequences of that for just one mistake. So I think that having a civil infraction in place, something that we can enforce in terms of giving tickets out, would be good. But I definitely would not be in favor of making it an actual misdemeanor crime.
Chief?
Yeah, I certainly respect the input from Councilmember Martinelli, and I think it's a great point that he makes, and maybe there needs to be a little bit more discussion on our part with Tim and with our group, and because you might be able to accomplish the same thing with an infraction and then not give the person a criminal record that could impact them into the future. So maybe, I don't know, this isn't the right place probably, but the first time it's an infraction and the second time it's more than an infraction, because you see that it's never the first time ever. That might be what's told to the parents or to the buddies, but it's generally, we've gotten to this point because it's the 10th time, the 100th time, that it's often the same group of people. But I do believe that Councilmember Martinelli brings up a really great point. So for discussion, and Tim is better, he's the expert at that.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that. And we have other codes that have graduating penalties. You know, that the second time is a misdemeanor and the first time is just an infraction. So we can certainly take a look at that and see if that changes anything as far as the elements or anything like that. So we can have that ready for discussion with the council, with the ordinance.
How about we have a discussion with the committee first? Once you've gone back to hash this out. That would be my proposal.
I would second that.
Matt,
I'm fine with it that way.
you're fine with it which way?
I'm fine with it if it comes back to us
Oh,
next
okay.
meeting. If it comes back to us next meeting, and then we can forward it to the council after that.
Yeah, get a better feel for the language and what you've hashed out.
I
So if you-
assume that we couldn't, in this punitive piece, we couldn't reference if they had the violation in other cities. I assume that probably can't happen because of it being municipal code. Or is it possible? They say
You
this is
know,
the first time and they go, well, in Canada it happened last week.
yeah, we'd have to look at that too. It might need to be an identical code.
You know? I mean,
But-
this is problematic up and down I-5, so
We can certainly look into that piece too. If you'd like us to, we could actually bring back an ordinance, a draft ordinance in June. I know that the chief is kind of anxious because of, you know,
the summertime,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but we can certainly bring it back in June, and then hopefully with that, we will be able to move quickly with the council.
Yeah, in my report, I'll just mention that you're going to be looking at a few other details and will come back to us as soon as June. So that people know we're working on it. I know it's tough because of the areas we're talking about, but I think it's prudent on our part if we can get something back from you related to the concern Councilmember Martinelli brought up. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. All right. Looks like emergency management update, Ms. Shannon Kirchberg.
Thank you, Councilmember Banks. Good afternoon, everybody. Shannon Kirchberg, Emergency Manager for the City of Des Moines, here to give you a quick update on all things COVID. Let's see if I can do this. Everybody see my screen?
For some, we get cut off because our pictures are over here and your information is blocked by our
Can you change
beautiful faces.
Can you change your view to grid view?
Um,
Does that help?
If you go up to the top there, Louisa, and you can just drag it over.
This is difficult for me without a mouse. I can't do it.
Oh,
without-
yeah, that would be hard.
I have no mouse. All right, well, go ahead, and maybe what you could do is send it via email.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be
I'll do
great.
that right after we're done.
Okay, thank you.
So first screen, COVID statistics. This is information that I gather every morning and put together in a report and fire off to all of the directors. And then we also do an update every Friday morning that compiles the full weekend. Good news is the numbers are dropping nationally. Washington State is a bit of an anomaly currently. As well as the world in total is in a bit of a hiccup, and that's with the unfortunate incident that is happening in India. Currently, testing facilities are averaging anywhere from about 1,200 to 2,300 tests in a 24-hour period. On testing, the Highline Testing Center that is at Highline College is currently looking for a new home at the end of May. Highline is getting ready to welcome students back in the fall, and they have some repairs and maintenance that they need to do on their parking lot. So I will be working with Highline College and the city manager to try and identify a few different areas that might work for them as alternative testing sites, and we will keep you posted on our progress on that one. Vaccine statistics. This is on the King County site. You can click in and take a look by area. You can see here that we are wrapped in with the Burien, Renton, Tukwila, and SeaTac area. Currently, as a whole, 16 and older, we're sitting at just over 61% vaccinated. 65 and older, 87%, 75 and older at 89%. I did want to note that Pfizer is submitting for emergency authorization for the use of their vaccine in children between the age of 12 and 16. So we should be hearing back on the possibility of that being implemented here in the coming weeks. You can see that the algorithm is off a little bit because Vashon Island is doing a great job at 125%. So yeah, their numbers are a bit off, but Vashon has definitely been doing a great job with their vaccines. Roadmap to recovery for Washington State. I put a couple photos in here. Governor Inslee did pause all counties in their current state. Nobody rolled back, nobody moved forward. Everybody stayed where they were, regardless of the counts increasing or hospitalizations increasing, because they were seeing a plateau over the weekend. So they wanted to just freeze everybody for the next couple of weeks and see what we do. So this just shows you the counties that are in phase 2 are highlighted in yellow, which includes Pierce County just to the south of us. And then all the other counties remain in phase 3 around us, with the exception of a couple down south and over to the east side. The case count graph in black, this is the graph that really drove the point home with Governor Inslee to go ahead and pause. You can see the very end of that graph, the May numbers, where that slope took a deep dive. That's where they were looking, and they just really thought they'd give it another couple weeks because they didn't want to do the ricochet where everybody rolled back to phase 2 and then he flung us forward again into phase 3. So he was trying to avoid some whiplash. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated. As soon as I know, I try and type up a real quick update and shoot it out. The next update is supposed to be on the 18th of May. These are the statistics that they hold us accountable to. So you can see that what they're looking at for each phase. Phase 1, 350 and higher. Phase 2, between 200 and 350. Phase 3, 200 per 100,000 in new cases. And then the hospitalizations are there as well. So this is what drives whether you're moving from a phase to another phase. This is what they compare to. And you only have to meet one in order to move. You don't have to achieve both.
Okay.
So if you remember when we started the roadmap to recovery, there were 4 that we had to meet in order to move. Then it went to 3 and we're down to 1. So they're really loosening this up a bit to try and get the economy running again. So this shows the map, it shows the trend, it shows where King County currently is. We are not hitting the numbers for phase 2. We're sitting at 251.2 per 100,000, which would put us in a phase 3, but we are frozen. You can see on the right side that the numbers are dropping, but anything that is in gray has not been finalized. So that means they're still getting cases reported for those days that have passed. So this has been updated and solidified only through April 27th. So anything prior or after April 27th has not been verified. So that's why we have the gray zone on these maps. And this is the hospitalization trend. So again, on the right, you can see that really deep dive in gray that has not been verified, but they're really watching those numbers closely. But as you can see, we are sitting at 6.2 per 100,000. So we are in a phase 3 state, not a phase 2. Vaccinations in King County, who's eligible? Currently, anybody age 16 or older. And like I said, Pfizer has applied for that emergency use authorization. How to get vaccinated if you're eligible, you can contact your healthcare provider or go to COVID-WA.org. The algorithms are much better on their new COVID vaccination site, and it pulls up by zip code. And it'll actually show you where the vaccines are, as well as which vaccine they are distributing that day or that week. So you can actually sign up for the vaccine that you prefer, which is wonderful. Vaccines are readily available via appointment, but also walk up. Most of the mass vaccination sites, you can just walk up and get one. Des Moines locations include Walgreens, Safeway, and local healthcare providers. We did have the esthetician office, which is right next to Print Place. They've been getting Moderna vaccines and have been communicating with me weekly on what they have, and we've been blasting them out via social media as well to our city employees. So we've been pretty successful in working with them. Probably the biggest buzzword is virus mutant. Mutations happen. It's just what viruses do to survive. So there are currently 5 variants that are of concern. And the reason that these are of concern is because they spread easily and quickly and they cause more infection. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily more deadly to us. It just means that they can spread faster and farther. I think the best description I heard was that they're more sticky. So the good news is that these viruses have been shown to be fought off by the vaccines that we have. So the vaccines do work, maybe not to the greatest level that they did in the beginning to the original strain, but they do work and they have proven that they are working. Easiest way to avoid getting this virus is the 3 W's: wear a mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, and in addition, get vaccinated if you can. City updates. All city facilities currently remain closed to public access. We are preparing and making great steps in getting ready for when we do open our doors to the public. We have health screens in place for people to fill out their name, their temperature, and answer a couple quick questions for us. We have PPE for staff and guests. We have reconfigured most of our offices. I believe all are done. We might have a few little items still left to go. We're still working on our employee information blog, but now that our new website is up and running, we hope to have that up and running soon within the next 3 to 6 weeks. We're working on our building ventilation. We do have some air cleaners in the court area, but we're working on filters and upgrades to that. We just got some additional information from King County Public Health on what's required, so we're filtering through those. We have a new kiosk system in the city courtyard that people will be able to make payments and buy different kinds of permits and pay tickets. So that'll limit contact inside the building. We're also working on getting some rapid testing for staff. So if we do feel like we're in a situation where we have to rapid test people upon entry, we would have those on hand. We do have some that we were able to obtain from SCORE that we've used for certain situations, and we're looking into buying some more of those because they work really well. In addition, we continue to have our EOC updates, which is run by our city manager, and we have also added with the leadership of Michael, our EOC policy audit. So we are also getting together and reviewing our travel policy, any changes from Governor Inslee's mandates or switching in opening phases, talking about building reopening, talking about programming restarting. So talking more about policies for what we're doing in the city that would outreach to the public as well. So just really diving into this and making sure that we're making the right decisions and getting ready for when this virus finally leaves us. Additional information, Washington State is conducting a fuel study. So we are working on a consumption per vehicle for emergency reasons. The state is trying to get a handle on what each individual city's fuel consumption would be during an emergency, and what our typical average storage capacity of fuel is on hand. So if there's an emergency and fuel delivery would be an issue, they would have a good idea of approximately how much fuel we have on hand, how long we would be able to run our vehicles and basically take care of ourselves. And then they would have a good idea of when they would need to get fuel dropped to us and how they would get it to us. So big project with all of our gas operated generators and vehicles and tools and chainsaws, and working on this with Public Works and the Marina. So big project, but it's due in June and we will get it done. Also, our comprehensive emergency management plan is due to the state for review in December. We're working on that step by step, and we'll keep you posted on the basic plan should be done by the end of June, and then working on the annexes for the balance of the summer for a completed plan for this group to look at, hopefully in October, and then to council in November before it goes to the state.
And just for clarification, the annexes are by department, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And then the public assistance, which is the FEMA reimbursement for COVID response, our first project, which was January 2020 through September of 2020. We submitted that project and got notification that the contract was received. That was at 100% reimbursement for just over $64,000. We have not received payment, but we'll keep you updated as to when we will get that. The second go around, which was between September and January, we were not eligible for any refunds through FEMA. But now we're working on our second project reimbursement, which is the third window of opportunity, which would be January 20th through September 30th of 2021. So we're just tracking invoices and keeping track of our expenses so that when this is over, we can submit an additional project for refund.
Why were we not eligible?
This shows you why we were not eligible.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
So this is the public assistance eligibility work. So this shows in that first go around that it was pretty open for reimbursement for medical. We could submit for PPE, but it could only be for specific items such as essential workers. And basically it came down to what we purchased for the police department. Hand sanitizer, we could expense for only the police department. We were able to get refunded for the refrigeration trailer that we purchased for the food bank. So that was refunded, but because we were working from home and people had the ability to work from home, there was a little bit of tug of war over what we could and could not expense. It was pretty restrictive. And you can understand the main reason was because what was being overtaken were the hospitals and healthcare. So they were really trying to reimburse for the medical supplies. We were eligible for refund for mileage for the van for delivering lunches, for us, one staff person that was reallocated to the activity center for senior lunches. But they were pretty strict on what they were allowing to expense. After September 15th, it got locked down even harder. You can see all the yellow there and the reds. And they pretty much limited it to medical care, hospitals pretty much only, or mass care units like quarantine and isolation facilities. Cities and other partners were hard pressed to get any money that second go around. After January 21st, with new administration coming in, that is when the President of the United States made an announcement and decided that they would refund anybody that had any eligible expenses through January 20th. Instead of 75%, the federal government would reimburse 100%. So that was great news. And then he opened up eligibility for other COVID expenses from January 21st through the end of this pandemic. So we now have more flexibility to get more expenses. So we can stockpile up to 90 days supply. And we have a little bit more flexibility to get refunded for more items.
So we've got about a minute, Shannon. Is there anything else is that it?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
That was my last slide.
If you could send that to the committee, that would be great. I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Michael's
Madam
done.
Chair.
Oh, city manager.
Thank you. Shannon, could you put that back up and go to the first kind of graph you had? It was fairly early. And I just want to share something with the committee.
This one?
If we can do that. It's the first one that comes up after about slide maybe 6, just not that. There we go. So I want council to look at this, the blue graph at the bottom, case counts. And what we watch and what we're concerned about, you can see that between March 2020 and approximately November, the stretch of that curve, there was a high point and then it smoothed out and then it came back right at the end of the year. What we're concerned about is not so much the immediate past, but as you look at the last curve on the right-hand side, you can see that what took 8 months or so previously to evolve, the slope of the trend, March through May, is very kind of compacted and going up. And what the governor's staff is concerned about, what we're concerned about, everybody's concerned about is what happens next. And it's not clear from this, is it going to continue to go up or is it going to come down somewhat? And that's why they did the 2 weeks. So I just want you to look at kind of visually, this is what we're looking at based on decisions we're making about the availability of City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so now we are at questions, concerns, other that are outside what we've just seen. Do we have any questions, concerns, or comments? No? Oh, okay. Well, if that's
And I'll just make the comment, that was a very comprehensive
very,
job. I was wondering why some of the vaccinations, especially over 75 or over 100%, that it kind of gives the validity of those results in the other buckets, make it a little suspect. So, but yeah, very good work and comprehensive report. Thank you very much.
we're doing pretty good in Des Moines overall. So obviously all the information going out on the web and I would hope people calling in and asking good questions has helped. So thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Chief, Assistant Chief. Thank you all for coming, Tim. We look forward to the next discussion on street racing ordinance. And if there are no other questions, then I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
We thank you all very
We all
much.
agree. We're out of here.
We all agree. We'll see you at City Council meeting. Have a great one.